Welcome back to our workshop. Today I'm working on these two mid-century modern chairs, and they've got loose joints on them. I'm seeing a little bit of wood filler, I'm seeing a little bit of a finish issue, and I've been told that these have been repaired back in the 80s. That concerns me a little bit because usually when someone's tried to repair something before, I've got to undo work to get some work done. It's going to be a little bit of an adventure, so join me, we'll figure out how to get it done.
As a furniture repair business, we're opening the doors to our workshop to show you the tools and techniques to repair furniture.
What I need to do is take that apart, repair it, and put it back together so I can get this chair in working order.
We give you tips to make your repair projects easier. Let's get into the workshop and start fixing furniture.
Most chair repairs start the same way. Let's remove the seat and see what the frame looks like. So I'll get the seat out of the way. At the front here, this is where the customer is concerned the chair is loose. So it's previously been repaired, and you can see here this has been filled with putty. But I'm also seeing there's a gap here, and there's a gap at the back. You can see a little bit of light there. So this chair likely needs to be taken apart as much as possible. Let's check out the other one. Now this chair looks a little bit odd. There's a lot of distance between here, and what I realized is someone put the seat on backwards. It's supposed to be sitting much further back here, and if I hold it up this way you can see it's wider here than it is here. So I'm not sure why someone didn't realize that was backwards, but we'll fix that as we put it back on when we're done. Now this makes me chuckle. There are 4 screws here, and it's going to take me 3 screwdrivers to take this apart. There's 2 slot-headed screws, there's a Phillips screw, and a Robertson. Oh, and there's a furniture repair tag. The tag says here, repaired or finished by Van Hoosen Furniture Repairs Limited since 1957, Ottawa. And it's actually got a pretty neat tag. If I look at it in a different light, you can see that it was repaired in August 1983. I'm pretty sure a company like this wouldn't be using 4 different screws to put a seat back on and put it on backwards, so this was likely done by someone else. Looking at the front of this chair, you can see here how it's been repaired, and the problem I'm fixing is this crack is opening up here and on the other side. Let me show you from a different angle. Here you can see this is opening up here when I stress the leg, so I'll pull it out a little bit, push it back in, you can see that movement. I've also noticed on this side there's some glue in here, so this might be difficult to take apart. The other chair looks looser than this one, and when I'm working on multiple pieces, I like to work on the worst one first. That way I get to learn about the joinery, so when I get in more difficult situations, I know what to expect. Okay, we'll start taking this apart. Now, most chairs come apart front to back first. These ones, the way they're designed, they come apart sideways. So let me start by just going under the stretcher here and see if this wants to come apart at all. I hear some wood moving, but I want to make sure it's not wood splitting and forcing this apart in a way that it's going to break. Okay, I'm going to pause here, pull out some vinegar, see if that will loosen up this glue. I am doubtful it will. This looks almost like epoxy, but we'll give it a try. I'll lay this on its back and then put some more vinegar in at the front here. Oh, and there's a break under here as well. From the underside you can see there's a split here. Now that's been repaired, and you can also see some glue residue. There's some that's dribbled down here, there's some back here. And from this angle, you can really see all the filler that's been put in from this previous repair. Put a little more vinegar on the back here, and you can see a few gobs of glue, but also over here you can see some more evidence of the repair from the filler. I've let this stand for a few minutes, so I'll turn it back right side up here, and let's try seeing if it'll come apart now. think it is. Just makes me nervous when I hear cracking like that. Yeah, I think it's moving. What I'm really cautious of is I don't want to put pressure on this piece here that it could snap off. So I've got my clamping pad down about halfway across that joint. Let me try the back here. Oh yeah, it's loose. That's come apart here. I can see light there. And just put a little more vinegar in here. I wonder if I were to try and break off some of that glue, if that would help. I'm trying to figure out what type of glue this is. I'm not sure whether it's some form of a PVA or an epoxy. It's definitely not hide glue. There we go. So this is coming apart well here. It's all in one piece. That's good. It looks like I'll need to clean that off. I'm suspecting this glue residue here was a homeowner trying to glue the joint back together. And the reason that I suggest that is there was a bit of a gap here, and a professional would have clamped that closed. And also there's a lot of glue residue around the outside, but nothing really on the tenon. So I think someone just had a bit of a crack there, and they squeezed some glue in and hope for the best. You can see back here this joint's come apart as well, so I need to work on the top now. Now the top of this chair doesn't show any signs of repair, so I'm hoping that I can pull this apart so that I can pull all of the joints apart and then reglue this properly. Let's see what's going to happen here. Maybe not. No, I don't think it wants to come apart. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just makes gluing up these joints on the bottom half of the chair more difficult because I have to stretch the chair out to get glue in the joints and then bring them back together again. So the key problem area on this chair is right here. There's a crack in this joint. With this area loose and the back loose, I'm not sure if I can take that off. I'm going to see if I can pull it apart this way. This joint here seems to be locked in tight, so I'm not going to risk trying to really force that apart and break that. What I need to do is focus on this area up here. I think the best way to deal with this is set on the side here. So if I keep this joint loose, let's see if I can, oh, it's loose here. Huh. It's like it's being held on by a screw or something. There's really a lot of play over here on this side. It seems to be pivoting right here, but it doesn't want to come apart. There's got to be something holding this together. I'm seeing something at the back here. There's a suspicious round fill right here. I wonder if that's where a screw is. By using an awl here, I'll see what I can do to pop this out to see what's underneath. Nope, that's just wood. Well, I hate to do this, but the last resort is a mallet. And the reason I don't like using a mallet is because it can end up damaging some wood. But I don't see another way that I can get this apart. Huh. There we go. Let's take a close look at this joint and understand why it failed. All the wood filler here and here and here offers no strength at all. So this was a missed opportunity from whoever repaired this. There might be some gaps because there's missing wood, and that's fair. But in here, I'm seeing some bare wood. In here, I'm seeing some glue that's dried. This is PVA glue, and PVA only works when there's good solid wood contact to wood contact. So it was very weak in here because there wasn't much wood contact. I'm going to clean this up and then I'm going to re-glue it, but I'm going to use epoxy to glue this because epoxy is the only glue that will hold when there's a void. Now I want to be clear here, the right product for this is an epoxy adhesive, not an epoxy putty. I've got a video coming up to show you about epoxy putties. These are meant as fillers, but because they're thick, they can't absorb into the wood and bond to the wood as strongly as an adhesive. This is a two-part liquid. It bonds with the wood because it can soak in, and also where there are voids, it can hold the strength like no other glue. You can't use a PVA here, a hide glue, or even a CA glue. I'll clean up these joints and then we'll check out the other chair. Cleaned all the glue and filler out of here, so we'll see how this goes together. I'm not convinced it's going to be very good. I don't see many flat pieces of wood. It's got a bit of a rock to it, but if I push it to the back, I've got a nice tight connection here. But look at all the wood that's missing here. So I've got a couple different choices here. I could try and cut off a piece here and redo the joint, but given the shape of this chair, it's critical how these joints line up. So I think it's best I do the repair in a couple stages. I'm going to glue this part back here and then patch in a piece of wood afterwards. I know I need to epoxy this, so I'm going to set it aside and look at the other chair and see what needs to be done. Because if I need to mix up epoxy, I only want to do that once, not twice. Oh, this is interesting. You can see the original joinery here. You see this wavy line here? This is a finger joint. So this provides more gluing surface and more strength to the joint. But on all the other three, you can't even see that because of all the repair. On the right leg, you can see here, it almost looks like it's painted. There's so much putty around here. So there's a lot being hidden in here, but again, you can see that crack. This is where the chair is loose, and I need to fix that. Hopefully this chair comes apart better than the last one. Let's give it a try here. I do see glue residue on both of these stretchers here. Yeah, it's pretty tight. So we'll get out the vinegar, let it sit, and see if that'll help at all.
Be sure to go to our website and subscribe to our newsletter for links to new videos, workshop tips, and more. Now back to fixing furniture.
The vinegar sat for a little while here, so let me give it one more try. No. Okay, well, I'm not sure how much we can do here. I can't take these joints apart here, which means I can't disconnect this. I wonder if the ones at the back here will loosen up. Nope, they're locked too. Okay, well, the only thing I can do is try to separate that joint a little bit and inject some epoxy and put it back together again. This one seems to be in much better shape at the side here anyway than the other one. So let me see if I can pull it apart a little bit. Now it looks like we do have a good flat surface here. There's a little bit of glue residue on the front edge there. So maybe what I can do is clean that off a little bit. There's some right there. But for the most part, it looks like I've got a pretty flat surface that injecting epoxy in there shouldn't be a problem to get this back together. After pulling out the glue and filler here, I'm getting a pretty clean break line all the way around. So I'll turn this around and you can see this is what it's looking like with the wood filler in it. So I suspect if I can take all the wood filler out and the dried glue that's in there, I might get a nice tight joint. You can see here where I've scraped away the wood filler. So I have a bit more back here, a bit up front, and we'll give it a test. Let's stand it up and see what it looks like. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I don't know why the person didn't do that the first time. I'm all ready for the glue up here, but I'm going to have to move quickly and I'm not going to be able to film all of it. This one here, I'm just using regular epoxy, so it's one pump of the resin and one pump of the hardener. I'm going to mix that up, get that in here, clamp that up, but then I have to very quickly move to the next chair, and the next chair, as you've seen, has loose joints on it. So I have to glue those joints with high glue, but at the same time, I have to now thicken the epoxy so it's going to work in that joint because it's so loose. So I need to put some colloidal silica in it, mix it up, that will thicken it, then I can put that on and then clamp everything together. So a lot of ground to cover in very little time. I don't have time to move the camera around. The epoxy is now dried on these, and on this chair I decided to stand it up like I did this one because what I wanted to do is make sure I had weight on it and get this leg lined up so the chair wouldn't wobble once I took the clamps off. So these chairs, as I said, the glue is now dry, but it needs time to cure. The epoxy that I use can take 1 to 4 days to cure, and that means it's coming to full strength. And I need to do some work on these, so I need it at full strength. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is work on my next project, and that's this chair here where the back was broken off in this one spot, and I have this void here. I'm going to fill this with epoxy putty, and you'll see that in an upcoming video. The epoxy is now cured in these chairs, so they're good and strong. On this one, there's a small void in here, and it's structurally sound, so it will need some wood filler at the front here just to disguise that. On this one here though, I've got a larger void and I'm concerned about the strength of this joint. So what I'm going to do is patch in a new piece of teak. I'll get this one chair out of the way and then I'll lay this down and take a closer look. This kind of looks like a gaping wound with that epoxy the way it's dried in there. So you can see there's a wood filler here. So I've got some damaged area coming out this way and there's some damage here. There's some down at the front. So I'm going to try and make as straight a cut as I can here and here with a handsaw and chisel some area out here. Basically what I want is wood contact from this piece of wood to this piece of wood that's solid. The weight of this chair is being pushed down this way, and I need to make sure that this is really going to be a strong area that's not going to come apart again. I'm going to use a dovetail saw for this particular job. So I'll just guide it with my thumb. Keep it in a straight line, and we should be good. So I'm partway down the front there. I think I want to go a little bit further. Okay, so now I'll take it across the second side here. If at all possible, make it a slight wedge shape. What I want to do here is take out enough waste that I've got a nice flat bottom on this area. So use the side of my chisel to feel how flat that slot is. I notice there's a little bit of rocking here, but there isn't here. So I just need to figure out where the center of the rocking is. It's about there. And then flatten that out just a little bit more. So here's a close-up. You can see the difference between the wood and where the epoxy has taken in different spots here. And because I've tapered this back to this direction, what I'm doing is creating a slight wedge. So when I create my wedge that goes in here, as I push it in, It tightens that space between these two pieces. It will give me a nice snug fit. I have a piece of teak here. Teak is really expensive, so I'm just going to take off a little tiny piece here with a handsaw and fit it in this space. Now teak is a dark wood and it's an oily wood, so when I mark this, I use a fabric pencil because it shows up much better as a white mark than it does a pencil line. So I've got my part fit here in a wedge shape, and I've machined it on all three sides. Teak is notoriously oily, so it's difficult to glue, and because of that I've machined the sides of it so it's fresh, and I'm using 2-part epoxy to glue this together. It's the best adhesive to deal with this type of material. So I'll mix this up. And put it in. Now when you're dealing with epoxy in a joint like this, you want to be careful it's not too tight. There needs to be a little bit of a film in there to hold it all together. And one thing you'll find too when you put epoxy on is it makes the surfaces very slippery, so you don't get the tension that you normally would when you're putting something together. So I'm going to put it on both sides just to make sure. If there is a slight void somewhere, that I've got it covered off. There. I think that's down. And we'll let that dry. This patch is now sanded and we're ready to get to the finishing stage. There's a couple of issues with these chairs and I'll show you a close-up in a minute. But first I want to tell you I've got a goal in 2022 to get our YouTube channel to 100,000 subscribers. I'm building a supportive community to help people learn about furniture repairs because I think it's a disappearing craft. So please help and send this channel to someone you know that might be interested in furniture restoration and have them subscribe. I'll turn this around here and you can take a look at the detail on this chair. So typical mid-century modern is teak, and that's what this is. It's got tapered legs, which is very typical of the style, and these rounded organic curves. So this is really a classic example of a mid-century modern chair. When you look at this side here, you can compare the difference. There's a flaw in the finish here, and there's actually a rough texture. I have a hard time believing this was the previous furniture restoration company that did this work. When I turn it around here, you can see in here and in here, there's a bunch of putty that's on this and it's discolored. This could have been done a long time ago when the putty might have matched the wood and the wood has gotten darker over time, but I can't leave this like this. I've got to deal with that. So my plan is to deal with the flaw in the finish first, then use a burn-in wood filler here to disguise all these open marks, and then put a top coat on top to make it all blend together and look as beautiful as this. So I think I've got it all sanded down. These light areas here concern me, so I'll just use some mineral spirits and wipe down the chair and see how it looks. Okay, I think we got everything off there. But you can see here now this really stands out. This is the wood filler. So this is the old stuff. I need to take some of that out, and I'll show you a trick that I use for that. Before I take that filler out, I'm just going to smooth this out. I can see there's a little bit of the putty layered on here, so I'd rather smooth it out before I take the wood filler out. So this is 120, same as I did with the power sander, and then I'll follow it up with 220. The more I sand, the more I'm concerned about the finish here. You can see up close there's some lines that come across here, some rough marks. And then here there's a little discoloration. There's some discoloration here, here as well. So I think what I should be doing is sanding the whole surface here because there's no real natural spot to stop. And that way I get a nice consistent finish across the whole piece. The next step here is I'm putting a coat of oil on. The one thing about mid-century furniture is it typically doesn't have a stain on it. It was celebrating the wood grain. And when you put a stain on top of a wood, it disguises all the natural colors in it. And you'll see that as I show you a close-up, as I put a coat of oil on here, all the vibrant colors that come out of it. So you can see here there are a variety of different colors across this piece. And mid-century modern furniture really celebrated natural woods. So if you were to put a stain on this, it would disguise all those intricate colors. So it's really important to make sure you're using the right finish when you're restoring mid-century modern furniture. The oil's now dried on this for 24 hours and the wood grain's looking fantastic. I do need to put a protective finish on top of this. Most of the mid-century modern furniture made in the US was covered with lacquer. I've tested this and it's not lacquer, so that means it's a varnish. So I've got a varnish to put on this. But before I do that, I need to address the wood filler. Now, I'd just like to give you a word of warning. If you're putting polyurethane on furniture like this, you're immediately destroying the value of the furniture. So please stay away from polyurethane as a finish. So take a closer look here. You can see there's wood filler in here and there's wood filler in here. So unfortunately someone put wood putty on before they put the finish on. And that's a common mistake, is when you try to put wood filler on before a finish, you'll never get the color right. And that's why I use a burn-in wood filler. So I need to clean this out first, and I'll show you how that's done. My secret weapon here is dental picks. I'll turn the chair on its side so it's easier to work on, and then I can take out the old putty. And this looks like it's an oil-based putty. It's pretty soft. So it'll take a little bit of time to work all this out, but it's important to take out this discoloration and fill it in with something that's more appropriate for the chair. And it might seem picky, but I think it's important to take out even the little spots like this to get them cleared out and replace them with the appropriate colored filler. Now that I have the old filler pulled out, what I can do is use the burn-in wood filler, which is really a form of wax, to fill in the void. So you just use a soldering iron, fill it in, let it cool, and then scrape it down. I'm just leveling out the fill here. I've got a little bit in here, and this one hasn't been leveled out yet. If you want to learn how to use burn-in wood fillers, I've got 2 videos on that. I'll leave a link in the video description. So I've got the wood filler in here now, and it's ready for the final finish. What I'm doing is I'm mixing a 1 part varnish and 1 part paint thinner together, and I'm getting a wiping varnish, and that will allow me to put on a thin coat here, but you'll still be able to feel the wood grain through. What I'm doing is duplicating what's on the rest of the chair, so I'm trying to get something that's a low sheen, and I can still feel that wood, and it gives it a nice feel, and you can appreciate the natural beauty of the wood. The finish is now dried on these chairs and the wood's looking fantastic. I typically don't like using harsh chemicals in my workshop because of ventilation issues, but there's no denying this is the right tool for the job. Let me give you some before and after photo close-ups so you can compare the difference while I put the seats on, and we'll take one final look. These Teak mid-century modern chairs are now looking fantastic, and they're going to last for decades to come. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'd like to ask for your help again to get us to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. We're building a supportive community around furniture repairs, and my passion is to teach that to others so more and more people can learn how to repair their furniture. Thanks for watching Fixing Furniture.